Welcome to the League of Legends Champion Spotlight, featuring Ryze, the Rune Mage. For 1,000 years, the Archmage Ryze scoured the world, seeking out ancient runes and storing their power in his arcane scroll. Though Ryze cares deeply for his fellow men, he must forever remain apart from them to protect them from the power he wields. He might seem curt and temperamental to those he protects, but if you lived for 1,000 years, wouldn't you? The world may have forgotten the horrors unleashed by the Rune Wars, but Ryze remains vigilant.
Ah, civilization. I remember when I was a part of it.
Ryze's passive is Arcane Mastery. It makes his spells do additional damage based on his bonus mana, and also increases his max mana by a percentage of his ability power. Build mana, build AP, get more strong. Ryze is all about combos, and he's got to pick the right spells for the right moment. In this case, we're starting off with his E, Spell Flux. It deals magic damage to a target and marks it with Flux. All Ryze's other spells have bonus effects on fluxed up targets, and we'll talk about those in a second. For now, we want to talk about the two ways you can cause Flux to spread to nearby units. First, you can use Spell Flux once, then wait for it to come off cooldown and recast it on the marked target to strike all nearby enemies with Spell Flux. Alternatively, killing a Flux target using any of Ryze's spells also causes Spell Flux to spread to nearby enemies.
You've got nothing.
When farming in lane, use Spell Flux to whittle down whole waves at once. If your lane opponent steps too close, you can use the little guys to spread the Flux. Win early trades by continuously giving them the blue business.
I'm hunted by things far worse than you.
Since we started with Ryze's E, we might as well move backwards. Ryze's W is Rune Prison.
They never learn.
Point, click, root your opponents to deal magic damage. Use Rune Prison on a Flux target to consume Flux and increase the duration of the root. The range on Rune Prison is pretty short, so you'll need to be ready to commit before using it. Save it for when your opponent is caught out, then lock him down, move in, and extinguish him. Ryze's Q is Overload, and it's a smidge more complicated than Rune Prison. Casting it fires a blast of runic energy, dealing damage to the first enemy struck. Casting Ryze's other spells completely resets the cooldown of Overload, and charges up a rune. Casting Overload again after you built up 2 runes grants Ryze a shield and a movement speed boost. If you cast Overload with only 1 rune saved up, it'll consume it without granting anything. When striking enemies marked with Flux, Overload deals bonus damage and bounces to any nearby enemies also marked with Flux, consuming the mark. If all that felt like an information overload, just think of it this way. Cast your Q in between every other ability to maximize your DPS. Or, skip a Q to deal less damage, but earn yourself a shield and speed. Here, Ryze bursts down J4 with a slew of alternated overloads and spell fluxes. When the naughty Nautilus brings Ryze close to death, he waits for 2 runes before casting Overload to earn a shield that saves his life. Ryze's ultimate is the thing that turns him into more of a team player. Casting Realm Warp opens a portal to a location a short distance away. A few moments later, Ryze and any other allied units standing at the entrance portal are warped to the target location. This applies to allied minions and champions, and works in combat, though it can be cancelled if enemies catch Ryze with crowd control while the ult charges. Otherwise, he can move and cast freely while the portal opens. Enemies and allies alike will have time to reposition around Ryze's portal before it activates, but there's only so much a poor Magus Ascendant can do when a pile of mummies and mages portals in on him. This was a triumph. Ryze's combos are great for bursting down lone opponents, but his wave clear isn't half bad either if you know how to combine his spells. Here, Ryze preps the wave by executing one minion using his E, automatically spreading spell flux to half the wave. He waits for his E to come back up, then uses it on a fluxed minion to tag the rest. A final overload blows them all up.
Hang on. Archmage business.
When you find yourself in a tough spot, here's a combo that'll get you out. Drop a spell flux on whatever creepy sheep person might be chasing you, then follow it up with a rune prison for the extended route. Fling out an overload to swap in those sweet runes for a shield and some move speed. Then GTFO. When you need to drop tons of damage reliably, QWQEQ is the combo you need. Ryze starts with his Q, followed by a rune prison to lock Karthus down, resetting overload. Ryze boosts his third overload with spell flux for increased damage. With no more spells left to cast, the Deathslinger is sent back to the underworld, where it's much harder to get CS. Now that we've taken a closer look at Ryze's basic abilities, let's talk a little bit more about Realm Warp. Sometimes Ryze's best play is to cut his losses and ult the heck out. After securing the Infernal Drake, Ryze's team is about to get smashed, so Ryze Realm Warps away. Don't be like this Sona. She could have flashed into the portal and actually lived. Realm Warp is more likely to hurt your team than help them if they're not paying attention. Here, Ryze wanted to give Lucian a quick getaway, but Malphite was ready to go in, so instead of getting some help from an unstoppable force, Lee Sin got left alone. Some say he's still tilted. When your teammates sync up though, Realm Warp can easily win a fight. Ryze ults to deliver Aurelia to the backline, where she promptly dumpsters face. Although Ryze wound up taking a few years worth of crowd control from Annie and Vayne, his party portal ended up with a double kill. Huge success. Realm Warp's range is limited, but you can use it to catch teams mid-rotation with a brutal surprise attack. Here, Ryze brings Kennen and Amumu into the perfect spot to pop their ultimates. He then locks down Graves for the kill and activates his shield, blocking the poke from the fleeing Xerath. With Jhin and Xerath out of reach, he turns to finish off the rude Renekton chomping on his team's backline. Thanks for tuning in to the Ryze Champion Spotlight.
I thought that guy would never stop talking.